And we are live. Yes, we're going to have a great one today. Of course, everyone is excited, of course, when we have the wonderful host, Mr. Keola, in the building. I had a chance of hugging and embracing this
That's
gentleman at
right.
Squad Up, as well as at the recent Owners Club. It was fantastic. Keola, you're always looking handsome and sexy, my brother. You got it going on, man. How you doing?
Lighting, Derek, it's the lighting. It's the secret of video, guys. Good lighting.
Good, good, good. And today we have wonderful guests. We have Pat O'Brien and we have Heather Kiddoo. Am I saying that correct?
Kiddoo.
Kiddoo. Yes. Heather, Pat, how are you guys doing today? You guys doing good?
Doing great. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. And for those who will be joining us in the chat, of course, I'm going to continue to talk your head off about our Money Bee Challenge that's coming up. We have the second Money Bee Challenge is happening July 1st and 2nd. July 1st and 2nd, the Money Bee Challenge is happening. The time frame for that will be 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on both days. And yes, as we did with the first Money Bee Challenge, we will be offering day 1 and day 2 notes on our wonderful looking PDFs so that you can have your notes. But we do prefer that you don't wait until after to get those notes. It's good to be there listening to Pace talk about how you can scale your business. What's a good lead? How do you vet a lead? How do you create your LLC and all that? So that's going to be a wonderful time. And as well, when I'm in the back and this wonderful interview is happening in the chat, guys, I'm going to be having some other links dropped in there. So without further ado, you guys enjoy yourselves.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate it. Guys, aloha and welcome to Pace Morby's Get Creative Live Q&A. I'm your host, Keola Keala. I'm a private money lender, transactional lender, and gator in the community, right? We call them gators. But I'm here to help others. I look to help fund deals and do real estate deals with all of you. Today, guys, we have the pleasure of talking with Pat and Heather. Both of them join us today from various aspects of Pace's community. I believe you guys wear multiple hats, being part of both Sub 2, Top Tier TC, and Gator. So kind of the trifecta, if I'm not mistaken, of Pace's community. But I'd like to welcome Pat and Heather. Thank you guys so much. Big mahalos for being here this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You bet. Heather, your name just kind of flows off the tongue. Heather Kiddoo. It just kind of flows. I'm sure you hear that often.
I do.
But it's amazing. Thank you guys for both taking the time here this afternoon. For those who may not know you and those in the Get Creative free space, I'd love to give you guys each an opportunity to tell us a little about yourselves, kind of your background, and what you were doing prior to joining Pace's community. If we wouldn't mind, let's start with Heather.
Sure. So before Pace's community, I was a gym owner, CrossFit gym owner, for many, many years. And I just recently sold that gym on Creative Finance to get into real estate investing and kind of understand a little bit more about that. And I really wanted to have something for my family to be a part of when they get done with college and all those things. And gym ownership, that really wasn't an interest for them. So I'm like, what can we all do as a family that would be lucrative enough for us and also fun? So here I am. I started with Top Tier TC first because I wanted to understand the back end of all the creative finance transactions. I was a realtor at one time, and it was all traditional, right? So no creative stuff, just pretty black and white, boring transactions. Everything ran smooth all the time. So I wanted to understand all the different things that were going on in this creative space. So I joined Top Tier TC. I was hooked. I joined Sub 2 with my partner, Rinda Emick. She was in prior to me, and I joined as a partner with her because we started a business together in the TC Collective, her and Daniela Devine, the three of us. And then I joined Gator shortly after that. So I just joined Gator, I think, in February.
Well, welcome. I got to tell you, I know why your name and everything resonates with me. I, too, come from the fitness space background. 25 years in that space prior to joining Pace's community.
Okay.
So I got a question for you, Heather. Do you still do your daily WODs at CrossFit, or are you doing kind of transition in your workouts?
I don't do daily WODs. I do like 4 times a week WODs. So still quite a bit, but not daily. Yeah.
Still getting after it. I see. That's good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I still actually work out in the gym that I sold. So I sold it to a head coach that I had hired in, kind of knowing that I was going to transition ownership to him. And I kind of mentored him through all that for the last, 2 years.
Awesome. I love how you could combine 2 passions that you have, right? Among many other passions, but your passion of fitness and now your passion of creative finance to move forward with his dream and also you and your families. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you bet.
Pat, let's hear a little bit about you, sir.
Yeah, so I've spent the past 15 years in commercial real estate. So I started at the very beginning as an investment broker, and then I was an analyst for a developer here in Chicago for about a decade, and then worked my way up to putting the capital stack together for development deals. So hospitality, multifamily, retail, senior living, you name it, we built it. And then about 7 years ago, I broke off on my own and raised a couple funds and took down a couple hundred apartment units on the south side of Chicago here that I rehab, managed, and stabilized. And then about 3.5 years ago, I raised another fund and took down almost 30 single family STRs that we own and manage to this day. And you know, I spent my entire career playing it straight with institutional debt and boring and cookie cutter kind of thing. And, you know, the past 24 months in the market, right, and interest rates and everything else. And I'm like, you know, we got to keep going. And a friend had told me, you know, I'm not a big Facebook or social person. I had to look up my Instagram handle to tell you guys to put it in that little box there. So I'm not big on social media, but so a friend was like, hey, you got to check out creative financing and PACE. And my mind was blown and I was hooked immediately. So I'm very green in the community, but so that's kind of my history.
I love it. I guess I got to really ask this question, right, Pat, because it's burning on my mind. For somebody who is very, I wouldn't say you call it traditional or boring, but in that realm of commercial, very numbers oriented, sounds like.
Definitely.
Very black and white, right? Spreadsheet minded. What from that world, like why jump into this, for all intents and purposes, this chaotic world of Pace Morby and the creative finance? How did that attract you, and kind of what was the determining factor?
Right. So, I mean, typically if you're going to buy an apartment building, right, tax returns and financial analysis and guarantorship and all these financial covenants and all these types of things that you typically have to do to secure a building. And I've been doing that. I've done that. And I have investors and funds, and guys are tired of that. You have to pay a premium for that. And I was just looking to be able to do more deals faster. So I joined Sub 2, and then I don't know, we went under contract on a deal a couple of weeks later, and then we closed on it a couple of weeks after that, right? So a single family home in Sub 2 you can do in 30 days, whereas you monkey around with a bank for 30 days of getting to know one another in my old life. So it's just, I was drawn to the expeditiousness and flexibility and capability of doing so much more, so much faster. That's what really drew me.
I love that. As I connect with people and have people on the podcast, they share kind of the same sentiment, right? Being in this Get Creative space that Pace has all attracted us to, just like you mentioned, the speed of execution, the flexibility, the creativeness, the fact that transaction can sometimes happen overnight.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Kind of deal and fun tomorrow, but just not having those limiting factors of moving deals forward and really finding a win-win-win situation for all involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's amazing. I love that both of you guys come from such unique and diverse backgrounds, and here we are talking together on a deal that you guys came into together and kind of teamed up. Let's talk a little bit about the deal that we're going to discuss today. Its background, like who'd like to kind of share what the deal is, how you found it, and a few basic information to bring us up to speed about what we're discussing.
Sure. So I can share how we found it, and then he can share the details of it. How does that sound?
Great.
So myself, the girls I mentioned earlier, Rinda Emick and Daniela Devine, are all fractional COOs for Pat. And we play different roles in his business. And Rinda plays the role of building relationships with wholesalers and helping find properties. And so she'd worked really hard and met a wholesaler who presented this opportunity to her, who then presented it to Pat. And it was a winner in his eyes because, you know, he looks at his spreadsheets and his numbers and all his things that he's really good at, that we appreciate so much. And yeah, it turned out to be a winner. And so he moved forward on it. And that was a great experience for him because, like he said, it closed in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
He was in utter shock. He was like, I don't even know what to say right now. So yeah, and then Pat, I'll let you share why it was a good deal and how you kind of looked at it and where it's at now.
Yeah. So we, on the fractional COO piece, right, we have our weekly check-ins, and this is as we were starting up and what we like in our buy box and what we don't like. And we had kind of flagged this, and we were kind of just noodling through, and it's like, well, Pat, we know you don't like HOAs, but here is a 2-flat in St. Louis, and here's, the economics. And immediately it caught my eye. It was originally a post-World War II bungalow. It was a single family deal that had been chopped up into a 2-flat. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this location, it was awesome. We got to deconvert it back to the single family and we'll make it an STR. So it immediately jumped out at me, and then ran the numbers, and I do love Excel, and everything penciled great. So I think a lot of people had passed on it because it was, a small 2-flat with an HOA, which is crazy. And it just, it doesn't fit that at all. So we flagged it and deconverted it, and it's, been great.
Got it. So there's a few things you guys mentioned that I'd like to take a quick pause on and kind of talk to the Get Creative space. I know for us in PACE community, we've heard it before, but you guys have mentioned and kind of threw it like everybody knows what it is. And that phrase is fractional COO. Could you guys take a moment to explain what is a fractional COO? How, Heather, if you could explain how you created that and kind of what the team looks like. And then Pat, why it was attractive to you to bring on a fractional COO into your business and kind of the benefits that you saw from your lens.
Sure. Yeah. So the fractional COO service that we offer basically helps investors run their business. Right? We solve some of the pain points that they are having. And the fractional part of it is they don't quite need somebody full-time, but they need somebody part-time. So we step in the places that they need help the most. And how we find those places is just an initial interview. So we'll set up a call, find out all the things, right? Dig deep into the business. We'll have a meeting, us 3 girls afterwards, kind of, assess where we see the need, have another meeting with the investor. And from there, we'll determine what needs to be done, what we see, and then they'll compare it with what they see. And that's how we move forward. And so, in our team, the TC Collective, we're lucky enough to have different sets of skill sets with all of us girls. And so we can tackle multiple different areas of an investor's business. And that's what we were able to do with Pat. So Pat came to us with a lot of needs, right? He said it in the beginning. He wasn't on social media. So he literally, that's not a lie. He literally had to start a Facebook page to join Sub 2 because they required it. Okay. So Pat's got a lot of skills that he's not talking about, but he can underwrite properties. He's got all this STR experience. He's got a cleaning company that he has started. And so all of these things needed social media help and branding help because he was nowhere. He's a consultant. He can consult on all of these things. So as we move forward with him, we're working on branding and social media and all these things with his business. We're working on acquiring properties, and we're working on operating some of the back end of his STR. He's also got a property management business, so that as well. And so that's where us girls came in, and we saw all the different areas and opportunities for growth with Pat. He was doing all of these things himself. And if he just had somebody to come in and kind of take control over some of these aspects, he could find more time to do the things that is making him money and free up some of his time, right? And so that's what we're working on doing with Pat. And that's kind of how this fractional COO came about. Was we saw the need as a TC Collective for investors who don't need somebody full-time, but they need somebody in certain aspects of their business. And that resonated with Pat.
I love it. And Heather, if you don't mind me asking just a follow-up question real quick, how long have you and your team as a TC Collective been offering fractional COO services or other type of services similar to that?
Right. So we've just started offering the service. Pat was our first client, and we've been together 4 months. We do have another client.
Feels like a lifetime.
It feels like a lifetime. Like we know each other so well now. we know he loves numbers, right? For sure. But yeah, it's been great. So yeah, it's just been a new service, and we'll continue to offer it. We think that it's really helpful for people.
Amazing. And you mentioned you have a team of 3.
We
And
do.
is there a specific strength that each person brings into the fractional ICO or into the space that is like their highlight? Like this person, like you mentioned, Pat, he not only did he go start his Facebook, but he's also got an IG now. Look at that, right? Like he's stepping
I'm
up.
so hip.
Yeah.
I'm so hip.
Yeah, he's so hip.
But is there something specific that each person brings that made it a good dynamic to move forward with?
Sure. Yeah. So we do have our individual strengths, right? And in this situation, we sat down after that initial call and we're like, well, he needs this, this, and this. How do we split this up? And, based on what we all feel comfortable with, I was like, I'll take this part. Rinda was like, I'll take this part. And Daniel's like, I'll take this. And so that's kind of how we have delineated things moving forward. And it's worked really well.
Great. Well, congratulations on this fractional ICO business of 4 months and growing.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's amazing. So Pat, if you could share with all of us, right? I think we're very interested to hear kind of from your lens, being an operator, being an entrepreneur, like at what point did you realize, hey, I might need support? And how did you kind of go after and attract Heather and team, the TC Collective,
Sure.
and how that went for us? Walk us through that journey.
Yeah. Well, I think like most entrepreneurs, right, you hire those people when you've needed them for like a couple of years already, right? But I've always been entrepreneurial, and I certainly have control issues, and I've had all these businesses and all these units and management, and you just have that feeling that no one's ever going to be able to do it as good as you. But you get bogged down and you can't go out and you're working in the business, not on the business, right? So over the past 2 years, I had grown exponentially, and I started with a fractional CFO, and then hired guest communications, and then I outsourced a handful of other things. And then once I got into sub 2, I had a couple of funds of capital that I needed to deploy. So I started to interview TCs actually. And Daniela was one of those. And we just kind of were gabbing and talking, and Daniela had asked those probing questions of the rest of my business. And she's like, oh my gosh, well, we're a fractional COO and we can fill 1, 2, and 3 sort of thing. So it was a hand in glove fit, just where there was a void in my business. So Heather does a lot of the marketing, social, all that sort of stuff. And collectively, right, they do all my TC work, and they're outstanding at that. But then Rinda was more of the deal flow, pipeline, acquisitions, the wholesaler relationship. And Daniela, we just transitioned one of my management softwares for the SDR business. We just did a full, 30 unit data dump transfer over that was months in the making, that would have blew my brain if I would have tried to do it. And there's no way I could have. So they really did fill the void in my business perfectly.
I love it, Pat. Could you share a little bit about kind of, now that you've been a part of this collective for 4 months, some of the things that you've seen that have been like pleasant surprises? Like you didn't know that by hiring a team like this would now be available to you, or just kind of any insights that you can share for those that may be thinking about or on the edge of like, am I at a point in my business that this direction I need to go?
Sure. So, a prime example is this week. So this transition of the STR management software is a massive undertaking, right? So I have my website, VRBO, Airbnb. I have every single property is booked every single weekend, guest communication, processing, payments. It's a huge undertaking. So the transition to go from one platform to another, truly, like when I say it would blow my brain, I can't even, I don't have social media. I certainly couldn't take on something like this. So, so I trust them. They're on it. They crushed it. And I had the opportunity to go down to Georgia to look at an apartment complex that has 2.5 walls, that's barely standing, construction, gut rehab. But I had the opportunity to go do that. I brought my capital partner, like contractors. So that in the past 72 hours, that alone, right? Like I'm able to go chase this new business, put creative deals together while major operational issues were handled.
I love it. I think what I'm hearing, the underlying part, and you both shared a piece of this, is that by you're able to focus on your strengths, right? Do what you do best and delegate the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And just to have that time, that availability, and also the passion to address what you really want to do rather than having to do the things you kind of don't want to do but have to do.
Sure.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I always hear Pace say that the magic, the magic or the growth is in the magic of avoiding, right? Like that sometimes we know what we got to do, but we start to do all these other things because we like those, but it may not be as beneficial. And just hearing that from you just kind of reiterates those points.
Oh,
So thanks for sharing that. I think it's amazing that you guys are able to meet from a initial networking call, right? That kind of evolved to just turn into this partnership and what sounds like many more deals moving forward. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will tell you too. So we met in person at Squad Up, and so I've spent 15 years in commercial real estate, right? So I've been to millions of those types of things, and I certainly have never been hugged so much in my life. So that was new, a lot of hugs. But I had never been to an event like that in my life. It was unbelievable. And I will say, right, so the company I started with out of college, it was like the boiler room. You had to whisper on the phone because someone was going to take your deal kind of thing, right?
Right,
so
right.
The sincerity and the way people actually in 100% totality are trying to help one another is unbelievable. I think that's specific to this group, but it really was, that was something, my biggest takeaway from Sub 2 and Squad Up and just the past 6 months of my life has been that at its core, for sure.
So more hugs going around every day in your business now.
It was one of the funniest things to watch Pat not give hugs and feel so uncomfortable. Like it was so great. He's like, I've been to so many of these events and I have not been to one that's more uncomfortable and awesome at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody has their own comfort level, right? Everybody has their own comfort. I get it, Pat. I'm on the opposite end of that extreme. I'm coming from Hawaii where hugs and it's normal. We're like jumping on people. People have to like push me away from them. I totally get it. But if I see you at the next,
I was gonna say, I got a big bear hug coming my way.
It's on. Yeah, and you have an unforgettable name too, so he's gonna be looking for you.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. So let's talk about the deal itself, right? Like I know you said you found this property that was kind of brought into you from Rinda, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And that you looked over the numbers, everything looked great. Tell us about kind of the back end of the deal. Like, how do the numbers play out? Like, what was the acquisition price on that? What was your entry? Was it a Sub 2 deal? What'd you convert it over to?
Yeah, Heather, you're going to have to hit him with a couple of those because I can't even remember. But
I'm looking it up right now. I don't remember what the acquisition.
So I'll fill in the other piece. So it's a post-World War II bungalow, which is they were built so well. So it's a boiler building, which I love. Mm-hmm. It was a newer boiler. It had a tear off on the roof, newer windows. So the bigger ticket items from a rehab perspective had recently been taken care of. Nice. So no structural issue. I've walked tons of homes, tons of apartments. So I drove down to St. Louis and walked the job myself before we closed. And all the work necessary was cosmetic. So, and I cleaned up a lot of that landscaping in the back. So as far as rehab costs, like true rehab costs, it was probably like 10 to 15 grand.
Wow.
And it was a pair of 2-1s, right? So the actual home is a 4-2. It's probably 2,200 feet in total, right? A pair of 1100s. And FF&E to furnish something like that is 15 to 18 grand in furniture, right? And every one of my properties too, I try and do a ping pong table or arcade games, right? Like those kind of fun things that you could do if you're not out enjoying the city. And So we stocked it with that and TVs, and we have a cool outdoor space. So that was about 15 to 18. So now, right, we're just a little north of 30 grand. And on a gross revenue perspective, we're right around the 75,000-ish. It's close to 3 hospitals. It's down the street from a major university. Tons of public transit. So it was great on the income and expense side.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was good. So we ended up getting the property. I think the purchase price was around 342. It's sub 2, so it had a mortgage balance of 260, and the interest rate was around 3.2%. And then there was a seller carry pack with 0% financing as well of like 50. So it was great.
Yeah, what a great deal. Outside of the property location, Pat, when you looked at the numbers, you said you had a buy box that didn't necessarily have HOAs as part of it, kind of avoided it. What changed your mind with this deal that said, hey, this is a great deal, I want to investigate it further and maybe pull the trigger on it?
So one of the units was vacant, and then the other tenant was on a month-to-month. So I initially knew, right, it's an HOA, which you go the other direction. But I'm like, well, I can dissolve that, like that. I could find a new home for that month-to-month tenant and help them out and put them in a better spot, which we did. So immediately, right, that barrier of HOA, it was a single family home in my mind immediately. So then you look at it, right, from a sale comp perspective as well. You're not looking at a 2-flat anymore. You're looking at a single family home. And just right, if I checked out or the sky was falling and we had to rehab it and dump it, like I thought from a single family home perspective that we wouldn't be over levered and we would be able to get out of it on that front as well.
Nice. Heather, as this deal was brought to your attention, what was the time frame from initial review to funding and basically closing? Like, what was that time frame? I heard it was pretty short for you guys, or
like 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
3 weeks. And so, Pat, remind me, in the commercial space.
Yeah. I mean, right, like if you were dealing with an institutional bank, they are 3 weeks minimum in committee alone. That's not even due diligence, document production, inspections, surveys, EPA phase 1s, you name it, right? So I remember we were on a team call. I'm like, 3 weeks for closing. Like I had to giddy up and go, but like I had to get my stuff together. I was so yeah. I mean, from a traditional path, right? Like it's not one piece of a deal could be done in 3 weeks. I feel like
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In this entire transaction, whether it's for this transaction or this newly formed partnership that you guys have with Fractionalized COO, any big takeaways or key tips that you could share with the Get Creative community?
Pat, do you have any tips?
Oh my gosh. I mean,
Pat, are you waiting to hear what Pat says first and then
yeah,
your answer? I know how to work this.
I mean, so obviously being able to execute when you find the right deal, right? So like being able to have all your ducks in a row, the TCN, the paperwork, right? Legal, you name it. So being able to see that, make a decision within 24 hours and then execute and close, right, in 3 weeks. So I think first and foremost, like deal specifically, it's being able to pull the trigger and execute. From a more global perspective, takeaways, the COO perspective, right? Identifying weaknesses in your business and then really do some soul searching, right, on what you want to achieve in the next year, 5 year, 10 years, and what you want from your business. And a big thing, which I'm doing better, hopefully Heather can attest to this, right, is being able to delegate, right? If you talk to any entrepreneurs, it's letting go, and right, you got to trust it, you got to believe in it, really, and letting go and delegating, and they will help you take the business to where it needs to go. So that's the biggest thing for me, I think, with the COO is.
Yeah, I would definitely say that too. Like Pat's done a really good job of being able to let it go as time has gone on. Like this whole transition with his software, Danielle and I were kind of reflecting yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. We're like, holy cow, like Pat is not even on these call, like we did a launch call with the new platform, and he was touring a property in Savannah, Georgia with a capital partner looking at construction, and we were handling the whole thing. And we knew we could handle it. Like, that wasn't the question for us. Like, yeah, this is nothing. But for him, this is his whole life, right? Like, we're talking about a guy who orders the toilet paper for these properties from Amazon. Okay. So that's how he's not letting anything go, like nothing. And so for him to allow us to handle it and then for it to be successful, yeah, there's some glitches, right? There's some things that aren't quite right now, but for the most part, everything is working very well. And the things that we've had issues with are just back end software things that they're working on for us, like the different platforms are working on for us. And so it was great to see him be able to kind of grow in that way and then realize probably, okay, so well, this is one thing that I've let go. I'm now more excited to be able to pass some of these other tasks. Like, Pat shouldn't be ordering toilet paper from Amazon for his properties. Okay, so now we're going to be able to get somebody lined up for him to do those smaller things. And I think that's huge.
I love it. I hear two things specifically from this conversation. Number one, Pat, congratulations on your ability to now relinquish
Thank you.
the control, right? And I heard somebody share once that you can either do 3 things 100% as good as you can in a month, or you can do 30 things 70% as good as you can in a month.
Totally.
Right? And just a matter of being able to accept that, and just as an entrepreneur, being able to commit to that and move forward on it takes a lot. It's not an easy thing. So congrats to you, Pat.
Yeah, thank you.
I think as well, right, on the flip side of that, your ability to relinquish and delegate also comes for the fact that, Heather, you and your team are able to perform. Right? There's a speed of trust created because you were able to perform, and that just allows Pat more trust given and received because things are happening and moving.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, from our perspective, when we look at the things that he needs, and for, if there's a TC or an operator, a fractional CO looking to do the same thing, recognizing your skill sets and the things that you can take on versus things that you would need to outsource. Just because there's something in an investor's world that he or she need help with that maybe you and your team doesn't have skills for, doesn't mean that you can't do the job. It just means that that particular pillar needs to be handled by somebody else. And then you can be the person that's helping that person find someone to handle that. And so, from that perspective, I think that's important too.
I love it. For those that are listening in, and just some tips from you guys, if there's anybody on the fence about joining one of Pace's communities, whether it's sub 2, top tier, or gator, what would you say for somebody on the fence? And any suggestions?
Take the plunge, do it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just it's so hard to explain to somebody who hasn't experienced it. Like, right, there's this free creative group, and the camaraderie and in that is great. But when you join one of the actual communities, it's much different. It's better. It's everybody's trying to help you. Everybody's working together, almost in an overwhelming sense. Like, there's so, like, no, not this many people want to help me, but yeah, they truly do. And so I think kind of having in mind what your goal is and what you want to go after regarding real estate, because there's so many things. You're going to get the bright, shiny object syndrome for sure. But keeping grounded and, true to the path that you have in front of you, I think is important, but then just joining, because you will not be disappointed.
Love it. Pat?
I think, right. So from my old life, after college, I had bought a single family home at auction, right? Like, that was the only way I could get into a deal, sort of thing. And I think a lot of people get bogged down too on analysis paralysis. And if you're on the fence or you're trying to get into it, there's no better way to get into real estate, whether it's a doghouse or you're buying a 6 flat or 100 units. Creatively, barrier to entry, the support system, all those sorts of things, right? Maybe you don't have the kind of tax returns that you could borrow, and then right? There is no better way. And, the sticker shock of the price tag, right, for joining this community, I've been in the club for 6 months and I've made it back tenfold. And whether it's one deal or 100 deals, it's absolutely worth it. So if you're on the fence, this is the way to get into doing deals. And all the ancillary things, like I just finished my estate plan, right, with guardian law, whatever, like all these other ancillary opportunities within the club that you can do, like it's unbelievable.
I love it. So basically, get off the fence, dive in, get involved, join the community. Warning for everybody, right, Pat? I'm surprised you didn't say this, but warning for everybody is that it does include hugs. So just be cautious. Be cautious. We're a hug community. But all joking aside, guys, where can people find and connect with you moving forward? We want to increase those FB and IG followers, Pat.
Well, now I know my Instagram handle. So it's that Pat_O'Brien _. And my STR business is on moreproperties.com, and it's spelled MOH as in Henry, ER, properties.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat. Heather, what about for you?
For me, Instagram is a great way. So Heather Kiddoo. And then our TC business is the TC Collective. We have a website and then also Instagram.
Awesome. Finally, guys, for everybody in the community, any members that are sub to top tier TC or Gator that are listening in, and if you guys want to jump on mini podcasts like this, be featured like Pat and Heather and their amazing teams, highlighted on those that you've closed, reach out to Taya at pacemorby.com, and I'm sure Derek will be popping that up. Guys, I want to just thank Pat and Heather for taking time this afternoon to jump on this call with me. Big mahalos to you guys for coming out. Love getting to know you guys, hearing your story and journey. And we'll welcome Derek back on. He'll have a few closing remarks for us.
Yes. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Very, very amazing. You guys had a good time on the show today? It was good?
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome. Kayla always knocks it out of the park. It was great to hear your story. Wow, Pat, you're like a superhero, brother.
Oh, man. I don't know about that.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
I gotta be
God.
honest. When I look at you, I
like-
feel like you're like that Mr. Smith in the Matrix walking around.
Yes.
Like, numbers coming down,
I
like,
love
how
that
your brain
analogy.
works.
I'm like, wow, he just comes on. Hello, everyone. So stoic and just chill, but he's like his laundry list of like accomplishments and amazing.
Oh my gosh.
That's so good, man. Wow, that's so cool. But everyone in the chat, Taya's email is there, taya@pacemorby.com. Email her. We would love to have you on the show so that you'll be the next Pat and Heather. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It was fantastic. I hope that you guys get harassed from everybody in the community because now they have your contact information. That's going to be amazing. Amazing. So as always, Kayla, it's always a pleasure. You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. Thank
Bye.
you.
See you guys.